Hello learners, I'm still Mr. KASIRY Stephen for History of Southern Africa Part 2. Welcome back from Part 1, where we looked at the Bushmen and the various subtopics under them. So we are going to look at yet another group still under the earliest inhabitants, and the second group of people we are going to look at is to do with the Khoikhoi, okay, who are also known as the Hottentots stroke herders. Okay, so when you see that subtopic there, you can pose a question in your head that who are these people? Who are the Khoikhoi? Who are the Hottentots? Okay, so let us know about these people. The Khoikhoi were the second occupants or inhabitants of South Africa. Remember, for the Sun we said they were the first. So the Khoikhoi followed the Sun. Okay, and both the Khoikhoi and the Sun belong to the same family. That is the Bushmanoid family. So the Khoikhoi also came from the Bushmanoid family, people who used to live in the what? In the bush, and also had a clicking sound like their counterparts, the Bushmen, clicking sound in their language. So members, let us now look at the reasons why the Bushmen migrated from their cradleland into South Africa. Okay, we have the introduction there. You can say that the Bushmen, rather the Khoikhoi, belong to the Bushmanoid family or Khoisan race. You can also say that they were the second occupants of South Africa, origin not clear. Okay, so you go ahead and look at the reasons for their migration. Okay, the first reason we are having is diseases, which is point number 3. Diseases in their cradleland. Diseases like malaria, sleeping sickness, and others that made them to migrate. Then there was the desire among the youth to be independent. Okay, so they ended up moving to South Africa. Then the occurrence of earthquakes in their cradleland made them move to look for areas that were free from such. The prolonged drought was the other, point number 6. Okay, the prolonged drought could not support their activities like cattle keeping, because for the Khoikhoi they were purely herders. Okay, so their cradleland lacked pasture and water because of drought, so they ended up moving. Then the other, they were looking for fishing grounds. Okay, looking for fishing grounds in South Africa. Point 9, population pressure. In their cradleland, the population had increased, so they were looking for areas that were free from high population. Then we have the harsh climate that forced them to migrate to new areas. Then there was love for adventure. Remember, love for adventure, we said, is the same as group influence, it is the same as bandwagon, and it is the same as peer pressure, which was common among the youth. Okay, drought was there, internal conflicts or misunderstandings amongst them made them to move. External conflicts, those are attacks from the neighbors. Desire for hunting grounds or wild game made them to move. Also many were searching for water and pasture for their cattle. Okay, then we have the conclusion there that their migration was caused by both internal and external factors. Let us now look at the migration and settlement of the Khoikhoi. Migration and settlement of the Khoikhoi, remember I said it is the same as the cause, and under that we are tracing the origin, where they came from, where did they pass, where did they settle. Okay, But before you start doing that, first define the group in question. Who were those Khoikhoi? As you see there in the introduction, we are saying that they were the second inhabitants of South Africa. We have said that they belong to the Bushmanoid family. Origin not clear. You can still go ahead and add others. Now in the body, we give the areas where we give what the question is calling for. Okay? So in the introduction previously, we have said that the origin is not clear. But many historians agree, like we said in our first part, that these people might have come either from the east or the central part of Africa, and their migration was slow and gradual. Their migration, like the Sani, also occurred during 1000 AD. Okay? And they believed to have started migrating around 2000 years ago. Okay? When they were migrating in South Africa, they divided themselves into 3 or 4 groups. Okay? The first group was that of the Cape Khoikhoi. Okay? The Cape Khoikhoi, sometimes they are known as the Colonna. Okay? Yes, those ones settled around the Cape. Then we have another group called the Khoikhoi. Khoikhoi. Okay? Khoikhoi. Okay? The other group was called the Cape Peninsula. Okay? Then the other group was called the Eastern Khoikhoi. Okay? Eastern Khoikhoi. Sometimes they are known as the Gona. Okay? And some books have the Gonakwa. Okay? This one settled around River Keishkama and River Fish. Okay? Then this group settled around River Fish Valley. Some of them went and settled in the River Fish Valley. Okay? The third group, the Western Khoikhoi, who are also known as the Nama Khoikhoi or the Namakwa, settled in the western part of southern Africa. That is why they are called the Western Khoikhoi. Okay? In the areas of Namibia, that is where they settled. Then it broke away from the Cape Khoikhoi and later settled in Griqualand. Okay? Others went and settled around the bays like the Mosul Bay, Table Bay, and Saldanha Bay. Okay? They are also believed to have settled around the Buffalo Coast and the Atlantic Ocean. Some history books say that that is where the Portuguese found them when they had just moved to South Africa, between the Buffalo Coast and the Atlantic Ocean. Okay? Then others occupied areas around rivers, for example, River Vaal, Keishkama, Orange, Fish, Kei, and others. Then they also settled in the desert areas. Okay? They settled in the desert areas, and that was after the coming of stronger groups like the Bantu and the Europeans, like the Dutch, who forced them to leave their cradleland and go to dry areas like Kalahari Desert, the Namibian Desert, and others. Whereas others chose to go and settle in the various countries that are found in the southern part of Africa, countries like Angola, Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, Namibia, and South Africa itself. Those are the countries that are found in the southern part of Africa. Okay? Areas the Sana that they are occupied. Okay? So that is the migration and the settlement of the Khoikhoi. At the end of the description, you accompany that with a map. Okay? Just like how we did on the on the Bushmen. Okay? The map is supposed to have the key basics of a true map: the title, the frame, the key, the compass, and then you locate some features where those people are believed to have settled. We have put River Orange there, KK. Where you see KK, that means that the Khoikhoi settled there. Okay? Then you go to your key and you say KK means Khoikhoi areas of what? Settlement. You get 1 mark for the title and then 1 mark for the allocation. Those are 2 marks. Okay? it is a must for a student to draw that map on a question that is calling for the migration and settlement. If you don't draw it, you lose 2 marks, because as I said, the map carries 2 marks. Then let us look at the way of life of the Khoikhoi. Okay, the way of life. When you talk about the way of life is the organization. Okay, the organization, how the Khoikhoi were organized. They were either organized socially, politically, or economically. We have a small introduction there about the Khoikhoi, which we have already talked about. They were the second occupants, belong to the Bushmanoid family or Khoisan family. And then straight away we go to the organization, how they were organized. We start with the social way of life, or the social organization. Socially, the Khoikhoi practiced exogamous marriage. Okay, exogamous means marrying outside your clan, outside your family. If, for example, you are coming from the monk clan, you marry outside the monk clan. You can decide to marry in the Dogo clan. We have those clans in Uganda, monk and Dogo clan. So if you marry within the monk clan, and then when you are in the monk clan, that is endogamous, which was practiced by the Sani. But for the Khoikhoi, they carried out exogamous, marrying outside the clan. Hope you have noted that, members. Then the Khoikhoi, like the Sani, were also religious people. Okay, and they had their main god, who was called Swigowabo. Swigowabo, that was the name of their god. Swigowabo is believed not to be seen on earth. Okay, but on earth was represented by an insect called the praying mantis. The praying mantis. And the praying mantis was also respected because it was a true representative of God Thoigowab. And the Khoikhoi believed that it was a source of happiness and blessings to them. Point number 4, just like the sun, the Khoikhoi also danced upon seeing the new and full moon. Why? I said the new and full moon is believed to have come to take away all their challenges they were having, say poverty, illnesses, famine, and others. So it had come to bring for them a new life. Okay, a new life that they were not having in their society. Then the Khoikhoi loved storytelling. They used to sit around the fireplaces to listen to the stories from the elders. Then they believed in life after death. Okay, the spirits of the dead. Life after death, it is having a belief that the dead are not dead. How are they doing it? They could bury them near their homesteads. Okay, and they could continue feeding them. Okay, continue feeding them and asking for blessings from them. That is life after death. Then, unlike the Bushmen, the Khoikhoi lived in big groups. Okay, they lived in big groups ranging between 250 to 500 or 700 to 1000. Okay, then they also used to marry at a later date. We don't say at an early age, but at a later date. Okay, meaning that girls above 8 years could marry or could get married to boys that were also beyond 14 years, between 14 to 16 years. And still like the son, after marriage, okay, The boy went to stay with the in-laws. Those are the parents of the girl, until the birth of the first child. Okay, and the Khoikhoi, like still the son or the bushmen, they were polygamous. Okay, polygamy was the order of the day. A man could have many wives. Local herbs were used to cure minor diseases among the Khoikhoi. Okay, then we look at the economic organization of the Khoikhoi. First, they were cattle keepers. They kept cattle, goats, and fat-tailed sheep. That is why we say that the Khoikhoi were herders. Okay, from herding, because they kept those domestic animals. Among the Khoikhoi, men drank cow's milk, while the women drank owl's milk. Owl's milk is the milk from the sheep. Okay, so that was their culture, which was not supposed to be abused. Then the Khoikhoi used to slaughter their animals on important occasions. Why? They treasured their cattle. They could not slaughter them anyhow. They could only slaughter only when the animal was sick, or when it was dead. Okay, or when they were having a very important ceremony, say death, marriage. That is when they could pick out one and slaughter. Okay, they could not slaughter anyhow. You are having a birthday and they slaughter goat, no. You feel like eating liver, they slaughter goat, no. That was not part of them. And then at times, cattle was used as bride price. Okay, when they were paying for the wife. Then the Khoikhoi also engaged in food gathering, and this was mainly done by women, as men were carrying out herding. Okay, they also carried out hunting like their counterparts, the bushmen. Then point 7, fishing was part of them. Talk about fishing. Give the example. 2 examples of rivers in South Africa, you know, where they carried out fishing. You can say they carried out fishing, for example, from River Orange, River K, River Keshkama. Mention any. Then they also used the poisonous arrows and bows to kill both small and big animals. But one thing you need to know, poisonous arrows and bows were used for small animals, while for big animals like elephants, they could dig pits where they could chase them, and when the animal fell in the pit, they could trap it from there. So that was the trick. Then they engaged in barter trade. Okay, exchanged the items amongst themselves, and then later, with the coming of other groups like the Bantu and the Dutch, they also exchanged with them. That was barter trade. Let us look at the last item on the organization, which is to do with the political organization of the Khoikhoi. Unlike the Bushmen, these Khoikhoi people had the chiefs. Okay, they were led by chiefs, and the chief had the powers to sentence one to death. That is point 2. Okay, so the chief was not just there, okay, just there to receive gifts from people, but he had the powers even to order for someone's death. That means that they were very powerful. Then another point, members, point 3. The chiefs were assisted by the clan heads to solve minor cases in the society. Which minor cases? For example, minor quarrels amongst them. Okay. Then in the case of death or murder, the relatives of the deceased had a right to take on revenge against the murderer. Okay, that was them, but today it is not allowed. Then they didn't have a standing army, still like the son. When there was insecurity, they could also organize the youth to provide security to them in the society. Then they had the council meetings, which were open to only male adults. Council meetings were there to discuss matters concerning their community or the society. Okay? Like how we have village meetings. They could sit and only adult males could be allowed to attend those meetings. You go ahead and conclude by saying the Khoikhoi were organized socially, economically, and politically. So that is that with the organization of the Khoikhoi. Then, lastly, let us look at the effects of the Khoikhoi on the sun. A question can come when they are asking you, how did the migration and the settlement of the Khoikhoi affect the sun in South Africa? Okay, give an introduction. Okay, first, if it is on part A, but remember on part B we don't introduce. Okay, you said the San were the first to settle in South Africa and later joined by the Khoikhoi. Okay, so the invasion of the Khoikhoi or the migration and the settlement of the Khoikhoi into South Africa affected the Sani positively and negatively, as seen below. When you move to a new place, of course you'll get good things there, and you also meet challenges there. The challenges are the negative things, the good things are the positive things. So the Sani were affected positively by getting good things from the Khoikhoi, and they were also affected negatively by getting bad things from the Khoikhoi, as we are going to see below. First, we are saying that the Sani lost their hunting grounds to the Khoikhoi. Why? The Khoikhoi was stronger than them. Okay? Talk about everything the Sani lost. They lost the fishing grounds. The Sani lost their practical skills like art and crafts. Okay? Then there was loss of lives. The Khoikhoi killed them. Okay? If, for example, the San women resisted the Khoikhoi marriage, the Khoikhoi could kill them. Okay? That is loss of life. They lost the properties. For example, hunting grounds. The Khoikhoi raided the Sani for food. Okay? Raiding is organizing an attack. They attacked them for food. They raided for food. Okay? Their women were also grabbed by the Khoikhoi. They used the force and took away their women or wives. Then another one. The Sani were made servants or slaves by the Khoikhoi to look after their cattle. Stock is cattle. Okay? The Khoikhoi enslaved the Sani to look after their cattle, because the Khoikhoi were herders. They had the cattle, cows, goats, and the fat-tailed sheep. Then the Sani were absorbed into the Khoikhoi communities. Being absorbed is to be swallowed up. You go to a new community, to a new country, you forget everything about your culture. Okay, so they were swallowed up. We can say they were deculturalized. Okay, then some Sani hunters were incorporated into the Khoikhoi communities. Okay, then the Sani lost their cattle. Okay, the Bushmen acquired the stock. Okay, rather the Bushmen acquired the cattle from the Khoikhoi. Remember, they didn't know anything about cattle keeping, and with the coming of the Khoikhoi, they got some animals from them and also started cattle keeping. So that is now positive. Okay, the Sani started living a more settled life. Okay, that is positive. Remember, before they were living a nomadic life of not settling in one place. Then point 13, the Sani traded with the Khoikhoi after coming into contact with them. Okay, they did barter trade. Then there was intermarriage between the two. The Sani married the San women, the Khoikhoi married the San women, and so intermarriage was there. Conclusion, the relationship between the Khoikhoi and the Sani was at first good, but later worsened, as we have explained there. Okay, then we have another small part of the Khoisan. Okay, explain the origins of the Khoisan. The Khoisan, one thing you need to know, was simply a combination of the Khoikhoi and the Sani. Okay, that group came into existence when the Khoikhoi intermarried with the Sani, and they gave birth to a group of people known as the Khoisan. Okay, so that group had similar characteristics like the Sani and the Khoikhoi. That is why in point 2 of our introduction, members, we are saying that they belonged to the Bushmanoid family. Okay, when we are looking at the origin of the Khoisan, this is very simple. Get the origin of the Sani. Okay, origin of the Sani as I explained it in part 1, and then combine it with the origin of the Khoikhoi. Okay, you will have the origin of the Khoisan, and that is what we are having there. Okay, then after that, you still go ahead and draw a map. Okay, all of that I'm scrolling down is already explained. Okay, I've said you combine work of the Sani or the Bushmen with that of the Khoikhoi. You will have given the origin or migration and settlement of the Khoisan. Then at the end of it all, you draw a map which is there. Remember, the map is supposed to have the key basics, a title, compass, flame, key, and then you locate the areas where you see KS. That means Khoisan areas of settlement. Okay, when you look at these groups, you find that they are almost similar, and that is why when we are drawing our map, we indicate same areas of settlement. Where the Sani settled, that is where the Khoikhoi settled. Where the Khoikhoi and the Sani settled, that is where the Khoisan also settled. Okay, so that is that. Then we have the comparison between the Sani and the Khoikhoi. When you talk about comparison, it is all about giving the similarities and differences. A question can come when they are asking you, compare and contrast between the Sani and the Khoikhoi. Compare and contrast. Some people tend only to give one side, say the similarities, and they stop there. Okay, compare and contrast. Give similarities and the differences between these two these two groups. Okay, so we have a question there. Compare the way of life of the Khoikhoi with that of the Bushmen. Okay, the first one, we are saying that the Sani and the Khoikhoi were the earliest inhabitants. Okay, that is a similarity. We are giving similarities first. Both of them were the earliest inhabitants. The Sani were the first, then the Khoikhoi followed. Then the other, both belonged to the Bushmanoid family. Okay, remember the Bushmanoid family? We said that it was the family of people who lived in the bush. Okay, and then we said Both spoke a language with a clicking sound. Remember, when we are giving similarities, use that word both. It should be at your beginning. If not at the beginning, you should have it in your opening statements. Okay? In your opening statement. You can say in your opening statement that the Sani and both the Sani and the Khoikhoi were similar in the following ways. Then you start giving the way we have given them to you there. Okay? Then another one in the body, the family was the smallest social unity among the Bushmen and the Khoikhoi. You have to pick points from the organization. Which organization we have already given on both groups. Both were religious and had their gods. The San had Kageni, the Khoikhoi had the Thoigoam. Both respected the praying mantis. We said the praying mantis was the source of blessings and the happiness, and it was the representative of their gods. Then both used to dance upon seeing the new and full moon. Both loved storytelling. Both believed in life after death. Both lived in big social groups. Okay, they both used to marry at an early age or at a tender age. Then among the Bushmen and the Khoikhoi, the boys after marriage could go and stay with the in-laws or the parents of the girl until the birth of the first child. Polygamy was a must among the Khoikhoi and the Sani. And then another one, the Khoikhoi and the Bushmen both engaged in food gathering. The Khoikhoi and the Bushmen were hunters. Both carried out fishing in point 14. Point 15, both engaged in barter trade. Both used the local herbs to cure minor diseases. Those are the similarities. Now learners, let us look at the differences between the Khoikhoi and the Bushmen. How the two were different. Okay? Now when we are looking at the differences, make sure that you use a distinctive word to separate the two, to show the difference. Okay? When we are talking about differences, we use words like whereas, while, but. Those ones. Don't write only one block statement. Okay? The first one we are having, the Khoikhoi lived in big groups, while the Sani lived in smaller groups. Then another one, the San and the Khoikhoi used to give care. Unlike the Sani, the Khoikhoi used to give care to the sick during their movement. So the Sani could not care for the sick. The Khoikhoi chiefs had heavier duties than the San leaders. So the San leaders were powerless. They didn't have powers. For the Khoikhoi chiefs, we said they had powers even to sentence someone to death. Then the Khoikhoi domesticated the animals. They kept the animals. They were cattle keepers. Animals like cattle, goats, and sheep. Whereas the Sani only kept dogs for hunting. The Khoikhoi practiced exogamous marriage. We said exogamous marriage was the marriage outside the clan. Okay? And then the Sani practiced endogamous marriage within the same clan. Okay? Hope that one is clear. Then point 6. Unlike the Bushmen, the Khoikhoi were led by chiefs. Are you seeing the difference there? Khoikhoi were led by chiefs, but the Bushmen were led by clan heads. Okay? Were led by headmen, not even clan heads, were led by headmen. Okay? Or elders. Okay? that were not even knowing much of what they were doing. Then another one, the Sun believed in God Kagen, while the Khoikhoi believed in God Swigowabo. Okay, there is a difference in their God there. Then when the Sunny, point 8, had just reached South Africa, they first settled at a place called Damaraland and Butler Pin, while the Khoikhoi settled between the Buffalo Coast and the Atlantic Ocean. Then we have a conclusion there. Conclusively, the Sun and the Khoikhoi had much in common. Hence, it is the reason for calling them the Khoisan. Or, the Khoikhoi and the Sun had much in common than the differences as explained above. That is the end of part 2. I thank you for listening. Let's wait for the guiding questions there, which you will be required to answer, but follow everything that has been explained regarding that part 2. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I remain KASIRY Stephen.